Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me for Try It Out Tuesday. Well, today we are trying out an alpha die set. I haven't used one of these before and I've been wanting one for a long time. This one is a great price point. It's from Hello Bluebird shop. And then I'm also going to be using the feathers and the honeybee 10 thing stamp set. And everything I use I'll link down below. But if you're looking for an alphabet die set, this is wonderful. It's called the Charlie Alpha Die Set. And it was $11.99, guys. It wasn't on sale or nothing. It was just $11.99 at the Hello Bluebird shop. And I think that's a great price point. Some alphabet dies are like $40 and I couldn't justify paying that much for an alphabet die. But if you want to check it out, this one is great. And I think the size of them is perfect. They're about 1 inch tall. But for today's card, I'm going to spell out the word warrior using these dies. I have to spell out everything but the R's. I need 2 extra R's, so I'll die cut out 2 more R's individually. But we're going to use some blue cardstock that I just brought in from my stash, my scrap stash. And I thought we'd pretty it up by using some gold washi tape. I think this washi tape was from a card kit. And if you don't have a gold washi tape, you could do some heat embossing on the bottom portion of your letters. I think the outcome would be pretty close to what I'm trying to create today. I didn't want a harsh edge with the washi tape, so I'm just tearing off the upper portion of the washi tape. Give it a kind of organic look. Once that's adhered to my blue cardstock, we're going to die cut out the letters that spell warrior, and I'm going to place my letter dies on my cardstock. I want about a little less than half of that gold showing, just a little bit on the very bottom. I'll just tape them down with my purple tape, and then I'll come back and die cut out 2 more R's so I have the full word warrior. Now I have got my inspiration today on the way home. I like listening to the radio to and from work, and there was a song by Hannah Kerr, and I'll link it down below if you guys want to know what song I'm talking about. But the song was called Warrior, and I thought that is such a beautiful message, you know, to give somebody strength, and I thought that would make a fantastic card. So that's where I got my inspiration for the today's card. But I did want to pop up my warrior, and if you wanted to use white cardstock and die cut it out 4 times each letter and stack them together, you could, but I thought I'd cheat a little bit, save a little bit of time, so I'm using some stick-it adhesive. And again, I went through my scratch paper stash, and I adhered my stick-it adhesive to some scratch paper, and then I'm going to add some fun foam. Now, if you want to just die cut out the words warrior with the fun foam, you can, but sometimes fun foam will lose its shape a little bit, and so I like to adhere it to some cardstock. That way when I die cut it, I have the fun foam behind cardstock and it keeps its shape. And when you use glue, it's easier to stack together. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to use my glue and attach the word warrior to each one of my fun foamed letters. And easy to do. And we'll just stack it. And I think the teal and the gold just go beautifully together. So we have a little bit of dimension. I'm going to do that to all my letters. And then once we have that done, we're going to do some stamping with those feathers. I'm just going to stamp 2 feathers. And I thought it'd be fun to stamp one on white cardstock and then one with vellum. So I have 2 different textures on my background. So we're going to do a little heat embossing with some gold embossing powder. So I'm treating both of my panels here with my anti-static powder bag. I'll take one of the feathers and stamp that on the white cardstock. And then I'll take a different feather and stamp that on the vellum. And I'm using my Versamark ink to stamp these. And then we're going to bring in some gold embossing powder. I wanted to make a super fancy, encouraging card. I'm just going to go over each of my images with my gold embossing powder, and I've had questions about what brand of gold embossing powder that I use, and this is a mixture, guys. It's the custom mixed, as I like to call it. When I filled up my little drawers, I used every gold embossing powder that I had. So there is some Simon Says Stamp gold embossing powder, there's Hero Arts, just any brand you can imagine I put together just to fill my little container. And it works beautifully, and it has a real pretty gold tint to it. But I don't have a brand for you. Okay, now we're going to color it in. For the vellum, it's super easy. You just flip it over, and I'm going to use my BG78 Copic marker. Any alcohol marker that you have would work. I suggest using a very dark color on vellum so it stands out a little bit. And so that one's done, easy peasy. And then for this one, I thought we would have a little bit of a gradient in color, so I'm going to use 3 different shades of blue greens. Starting with BG57, we'll add a little dark shading around, and then I'll use my mid-tone, which is the BG15. And then we're going to fill in the entire background with our BG11. I just have to go grab it. And then our feathers are done. I think these colors match the cardstock pretty well. I believe that there are coordinating dies that goes with this stamp set. If I can find them, I'll link them down below. But I'm going to just use my scissors and fussy cut each one of my feathers out. And then we're going to set those aside and work on our background. So here they are. Now I'm going to leave my background mostly white. So I like a little added texture, so I'm bringing in an embossing folder from We Are Memory Keepers. I thought the pattern on this was very unique and kind of went with a warrior kind of a theme. So I just trimmed my panel actually into 2 pieces. That bottom strip I wasn't going to use, but ended up bringing it in and putting it on my card base, just because I think it looked nice, I guess, and I didn't want to throw it away. But I have a 1-inch strip of gold cardstock. I'm going to add that to my embossed panel there. And then using my 1/2-inch piece of the same cardstock we used for our sentiment that says Warrior, I'm going to adhere a thin strip right below the gold. This way, I have a little bit of blue peeking out. My panel is just a little bit too wide, so I'm going to line it up on my card base and just trim off the excess. And then we're going to go ahead and adhere this extra piece of embossed, our embossed panel, and add that to the very bottom. Add a little texture down there as well. For this piece, I'm going to add a few pieces of foam tape behind it, and I'm going to slightly overlap that bottom embossed piece that we just adhered, and then this is going to go right above it. And I'm going to straighten out that edge there on the bottom, or on the top. Lovely. Now I'm going to go ahead and adhere my vellum feather here. And then kind of position where I want my warrior to go. I'm making sure it fits. I should have checked if it fit vertically or horizontally across my card before I kind of figured out what I was going to do with my card, but it worked out good. Okay, that's basically how it's going to look, but I do want to finish off my sentiment, and since we're kind of customizing our sentiment, I'm going to bring in another stamp set from Neat and Tangled. This one is from the You're a Gem stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp the word you are with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I'll take the A gem sentiment, and I'm going to mask off the gem portion. I just want to stamp the A. So my sentiment will say you are A. We'll mask that off, ink up our A, stamp that right next to the R. And then I'm going to go over this with my gold embossing powder. I'll melt it since it stays sticky for a little while. And then I did fussy cut it out. So this one's ready to go. We're going to go ahead and adhere our warrior. I'm going to use my glue and attach the W-A-R in front, and then the O and the R on the end of the sentiment. And then all I have left is the R and the I, which kind of overlap on my feather. And I was just going to adhere the R and the I right above my feather and then glue it down. But I thought, you know what? We're fancying up this card with the gold, so we might as well go full blown. So I'm going to bring in some gold wire. I've used this before on my cards, and I think it gives a very elegant look, and it also adds an extra layer of texture. So I'm just adding, I trimmed down like 3 loopies of this beading. It's beading wire, and I'm not sure of the gauge, guys, because I've had it for a while, and you can see my label kind of ripped off. But it's super thin stuff. I use a glue dot to help keep the loopies all together, and then I can also use that glue dot to secure it to my card base, which I did there. And then with my colored in feather, I'll just attach that right over my glue dot, covering it up, and then I'll go ahead and glue down my R and my I. So my warrior is all glued down, and I have a little bit of extra sparkle back there. I did add some small pieces of foam squares behind my URA. We'll place that right above the warrior. And I think that's such a fun sentiment. I think it's so encouraging. My goodness. I love the way this turned out. I think it goes perfect with feathers. We're going to add a little bit more bells and whistles by adding some gems. These are some ivory gems, and we're going to add a few here and there, and then that completes my custom card using a whole bunch of different supplies today, guys. And I will link all of them down below as always, including the song that I was inspired by. Oftentimes it doesn't have to be something that's visual to inspire my card making. I guess it could be audio too, if that's a word. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.